Welcome to Carol Matthews' Intuitive Medium Podcast. Now, here's Carol.
Hi there, this is Carol Matthews, and welcome to my podcast. Again, I thank you for your positive feedback on the stories that I have been sharing with you. So guess what? I'm going to be sharing some more. And it never fails to amaze me how information from the other side comes through in such a clear manner. Family names of my clients, their friends, even the names of animals that have passed on. And I'm discovering that for credibility purposes, Spirit or your guardian angels will often give me the middle name of a father or a friend. I often wondered why, but I realize now that quite often skeptics have brought up the fact that what I and other mediums do is simply read minds. Well, I don't read minds. I don't know what you had for lunch. Well, when my client comes in, they are only thinking of their departed person's first name, not the middle. So that takes care of that theory. And the other thing that happens with me is I will not do initials. So quite often when you go for a reading, they will say to you, you have an M name or a name with an M. Well, when you leave, you're quite satisfied because you can fit many names into M. With me, it's a bit more difficult, but it's more of an impact when it's Margaret, your aunt, your grandmother, your mother, So we do not read minds. So when they come in, they're not thinking about the name, as I was just saying to you, and that sort of kind of takes care of that theory. So messages, and there are many, are given through myself to my radio listeners, on telephone readings, and this always makes me wonder why. I never take it for granted, and I'm friends and family, they know me well, of course, and they say, well, didn't you know that was going to happen? No, I didn't. So here's a little bit of a story. So Patricia, just here's an example, came to see me for a consultation, and I told her she had many spirits standing around the room, watching over her and vying for her attention. I also pointed out that this doesn't often happen. 2 months later, she happened to call into my radio show. I focused on her energy, related to her that there were many people hovering around her in a protective manner. Well, her feedback was that I had told her the same thing throughout her personal session with me. So Carol, not the medium, I find it very interesting that the guides that come through to give us message to us are consistent. So they will be there on the radio. They will be there through telephone, which I still don't know how they do it, and don't ask me. And I don't have an answer to that. And then in person. So, what do they say? Not to wonder how, or just do it. I don't try to figure it out. And then here's a really cute story. This happened in Toronto. Marcia, and I've changed the names to protect the innocent, okay? So Marcia came to see me in Toronto. Her husband had met with an untimely accident which took his life, leaving her with a small son and the hope that her husband was watching over her. I'd almost completed a day of readings that had kept me seated at my desk and very aware of my surroundings, and I tell you that for a reason. After greeting my well-dressed, composed client, I asked her to have a seat. She no sooner sat down than she started sobbing about pennies and how she didn't see them this time. Well, when I'm with the client, I don't encourage them to give me any information pertaining to the issue that has brought them to me. My reasoning is that there is more credibility to the session if I give them the information rather than feeding from what they may say. So with this in mind, I gave her some much needed Kleenex, and I continued on with the session, giving Marcia her husband's name and his nickname for her, messages from him, and the assurance that his passing was good, even though his leaving was fast. I mentioned little signs that he's been giving her and her son to let them know he's watching over them. Seeing her smiling and having that look of comfort that comes when clients receive messages from their loved ones made me feel really good. But the crying quickly started again. So I decided it was now time to let her talk it out. She told me how every time she's upset or uncertain about something, she'll find 3 pennies, usually in strange places. Her husband had always told their sons stories about pennies that come from heaven and how they bring good luck. And he would urge them to pick them up if they saw them. I can feel it just as I'm talking to her, and give them to someone else to give them luck. So that was his story. So shortly after his death, she and her son started finding pennies, 3 of them on the floor of the car, on the front doorstep, in the hall, all right? And these little messages always brought smiles and reassurances to both of them. And she was aware of the fact that there was a penny for each of them. Well, apparently when she got out of the car that evening for the reading, feeling rather apprehensive about her visit with me, she looked down and there were only 2 pennies on the ground. The absence of the 3rd penny upset her, and she couldn't help but wonder if maybe he wasn't around to protect her anymore. Well, I consoled her the best that I could, and I told her that, yes, he was around her, and I was very sure of that because as she was speaking, I had been told to look over to the mat by the door, and there was a third penny. We were both amazed and happy. And if you remember, I mentioned that I had been sitting in that one position behind my desk pretty well for a good part of the day doing my readings. And I had not seen, and I would have seen the penny on the ground. So my client left very reassured and very, very happy that her husband, guardian angel, was with her and was going to continue to send pennies for her and her son. Just trust and believe.
Thanks for listening. To contact Carol, email her at coastttocoastmedium@gmail.com or find her online at carolmatthewsintuitive.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future episodes.